Have you felt overwhelmed and anxious about the explosion of AI tools and maybe worried about whether you'll be left behind? Well, I took a look at the top AI tools to see which ones are scams, what you should be worried about, and why AI is making you feel this way. So in this video, I want to talk about why you're normal to feel like this. Should you be worried, and maybe if you're missing out on anything? And most importantly, what can you do about it? But in order to make sense of all of this, I need to show you why you have to start baking more cakes. So imagine baking a cake, getting all the ingredients lined up, and then mixing them, and obviously putting them in the oven. And then as the cake cooks, the smell drifts through the kitchen and becomes irresistible. Believe it or not, there are people who will take the cake out of the oven way too early before it's even finished cooking and start to eat it, even if the cake batter is still a little bit wet. Now, you might look at that person and think, what an absolute mentalist, like who would do that? And that's why it's important to know that you're not the only one who feels this way about AI. It is overwhelming, and there is a lot of noise out there right now. And if you aren't already on board and using this technology, it simply means that it isn't ready for you. If we go back to our cake, and if you're patient, you'll wait until it's completely cooked. And that's when you take it out of the oven, right? When it's ready. And even then, it still needs to cool down. Then you might even want to decorate it or add a middle layer. I am particularly partial on a jam filling. And even then, you might wait until you have friends around. And even then more, you wait until everyone is offered a slice. The point is that there is a model that explains why we wait and why that isn't such a bad thing. When it comes to AI, if you're more willing to wait until everyone else is using it, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Using a specific technology early does not give you an inherent advantage over anyone else. We even say that something is half-baked to explain when it's not quite ready for mass adoption yet. The risk is that by adopting early, you'll invest time and money into something that might not pan out. And like the cake, yes, there is a chance that you'll get to experience what the tool has to offer before anyone else. But you could also experience diarrhea from eating uncooked eggs. And in fact, companies know this, which is why they use a model called the product adoption curve. Before we get too much into that, you need to understand that this graph has one massive flaw. You see, back in the 1700s, there was a global movement called the Industrial Revolution. Before that, most people worked on farms, they did manual labor. Merchants existed, of course, but there were lawyers and scholars and soldiers and teachers and all kinds of things that we'd probably call like normal jobs now. However, the Industrial Revolution took manual jobs such as textiles and made them way more productive. What used to take people like 10 people, 10 days to make could be done by one person in one day. And before this, there were advances in farming methods and transport, even medicine. In fact, there's even evidence of steam-based power back in the Roman Empire over 2,000 years ago. Fast forward back to today, and we are in the midst of an artificial intelligence revolution, or at least so it seems. If we take a look at the product adoption curve, those businesses who we talked about in the Industrial Revolution and who were early adopters of a lot of these new technologies were hailed as visionaries when, yes, some of them did strike rich, and some of those companies are even still around today. But for every Cadbury and DuPont, there are dozens, if not hundreds, of failures. And what's really interesting is that many of these businesses that were hailed as visionaries when they were founded often struggled to adopt later technologies or market changes at all, leading to their demise. I mean, just look at Kodak, like Polaroid, Nokia. If we take a look at all of our favorite apps that we use now, things like Zoom and ClickUp and Google Docs, anything and everything has an AI assistant baked into it now who can do some of the work for you, often to varying degrees of success. Now, these companies are the early adopters and they are spending billions trying to keep their customers happy by incorporating the newest wave of AI tools into their own offer. But if we look at the product adoption curve again, there is in fact zero link between when you adopt something and if you'll be successful. You see, the mistake that many people make is that by being the first to use a new tool, that somehow they have an advantage over everyone else. I mean, take a look at Bebo and Hydrox and Yahoo. First to market, which is a seemingly massive advantage, and they were replaced by later additions to the market. Coming up, I'm going to talk about the tools that you should be worried about, the market advantage that you are missing, and if you are going to get started with one tool, which one you need to get started with. So, should you be worried? Would you like to move up the product adoption curve? One of the barriers to adopting any new technology might be ethical grounds, changing your habits, or like the reason that people are put off by cycling, the people who talk about it are absolutely unbearable. Let's first talk about the elephant in the room, the inevitable demise of the human race at the hands of an artificial superintelligence that wipes us off the face of the planet, a bit like Clippy. Now, it's extremely important that we get very clear on the fact that AI, as we understand it now, does not exist, at least not in any public sense. ChatGPT, Bard, Bing, Midjourney, DALL-E. These things are actually called large language models. And yes, they do have elements of machine learning behind them, but they will not, and I cannot emphasize this enough, gain sentience and take control of nuclear launch codes, right? Every single AI tool that you're using right now or that you've seen is at best a prediction engine. A little bit later, I'm going to tell you which tools you need to avoid because they're basically massive scams. But for the sake of this video, and that large language models, or LLM, is basically harder to say than AI, I'm going to use the two interchangeably from now on. AI tools as we have them today are basically just predicting what you want to see or read based on trillions of gigabytes of learned data and content. Yes, they make good copywriters, and yes, they probably will replace a large chunk of what we deem creative work right now. And yes, their predictions based on what they've learned may lead them to make some spooky suggestions. But I've got news for you. This shit has been around for years. We're only now getting access to it on a public-facing level. So if you're worried that a California tech startup has created the next Skynet or Matrix, worry not. However, if your fears are more based on plagiarism and undercutting creatives, then that's pretty well founded. Current large language models, or LLMs, are trained on reading trillions of words of content. It literally is that simple. A computer reads every single Wikipedia article on the internet and tries to learn what the next word is, which kind of takes the mystery and magic out of it a bit, really. But the computer has read everything from your blog posts to freely available stories and illegally uploaded pirated versions of books. The image creator tools have looked at billions of images and have learned to predict that a car looks like this and that a horse looks like this. Think of tools like ChatGPT as summary and common practice prediction machines. Based on the works of popular children's authors, a tool like ChatGPT can spit out a very similar style of content with the kind of same rhythms and plot points, although it often reads like it was written by someone who doesn't quite understand the text but is sort of like just regurgitating it. Now, this is actually one of its greatest strengths. And I'll show you how I trained one AI tool to write just like me and create our emails for our daily email campaigns. And that's what you need to treat AI like. If you're worried about using it or you're unsure on how to get started, you need to understand that AI, like any tool, like any automation, is an accelerant. It'll only get you more of what you're already getting. A friend of mine saw my email AI workflow and tried putting it into practice himself. After a few days, he told me two things. My process sucks and is broken, and ChatGPT is garbage. So I asked him to screen record what he was doing and what the end result was and why he was unhappy. And sure enough, he followed the same process as me, but when the tool actually wrote the emails, They were awful. He was right about one thing: the emails that ChatGPT created were garbage, but this is kind of the equivalent of me buying the same golf clubs that Tiger Woods uses and being shocked that my golf game is not as good as his. My friend's emails were cold, they were unoriginal, they didn't really read very well. So I asked him to send examples of his emails that he was sending before he used ChatGPT. And he looked at me blankly and said, well, I haven't written any emails before to my list. I, however, have been writing a daily email to my list for almost 8 years. I had a ton of examples to feed into ChatGPT and for it to analyze and replicate. Yes, I still have to provide the topic of the email, the key learning points, and maybe a bit around the style and the tone, but I'm now able to use a tool like Chat to speed up what I was already doing. And this is the single largest flaw that people selling AI tools have created. The entire sales pitch for 99% of AI tools is, if you've ever wanted to do X, then use our AI tool to start. And there's another massive problem with how people sell AI tools that I'll touch on in a minute. If you've ever bought expensive home gym equipment, like maybe during lockdown, because you thought, well, removing that sort of barrier to entry of actually having to go to the gym, that will somehow magically make you work out more, you'll know full well that an exercise bike is basically an expensive clothes horse. If you're not already writing blog content, an AI tool isn't going to get you great results. If there is something you're already doing and you are willing to take the time to train another tool to do it better or faster than you, then AI might be a good option. And when I talk about training and patience and having examples to work off, what does that sound like? It sounds an awful lot like hiring an employee. And I have found a massive similarity between adopting new technologies, especially AI, and hiring team members. A really good litmus test is to ask yourself, would I feel comfortable hiring someone to do this? And if not, then an AI tool isn't going to do you any favors. So, are there any tools that I 100% recommend that you absolutely need to use? Well, yes, there are, and I'll share mine with you in a minute, but I want to share the tools that I think are an absolute scam. Hopefully, you've picked up a few pointers about what the tools are good at and what their capabilities are. But there is one type of AI tool that I would avoid like a plague-carrying rat having a phone conversation on loudspeaker. Any explosion in public interest, sales pitches go where the money is. And right now, the money is in AI tools. There is absolutely no AI tool out there that is a one-click, does everything, and will change your life. Literally none of them. Come at me, AI bros. All tools need training, lots of training, both for you and the tool itself. They need a lot of patience and there's a lot of learning. And even then, the results are garbage. AI is a current marketing buzzword and businesses are doing anything and everything they can to cram that word into their marketing copy. Do not believe the hype. If a tool seems too good to be true, just because it's powered by AI, it probably is. Ask yourself, if this wasn't an AI tool, but a person who claimed they could do all of this, would I believe them? If the answer is no, then it's probably hot garbage. So, what is the magic AI tool that you probably should check out? Well, without question, the easiest place to start is probably ChatGPT for a few reasons. I now use Chat every single day. It helps me craft emails, plan campaigns, reply to messages, and get my ideas out on paper. ChatGPT is a fantastic sounding board. For example, I uploaded 20 emails to ChatGPT and asked it to analyze my style, my tone of voice, the language and copy patterns, then to write an email back to me in my style about the topic of productivity. And sure enough, when I ask the right prompt, it spits out a seriously good email that sounds just like me. But there's a ton of other things I use it for as well. I've used it to respond to customers and to like pissed off people. and I've been able to not come across as defensive. I've also used it to draft a goodbye video to my coaching clients. The point is that ChatGPT can be used for a lot of everyday tasks. Think of it less like a tool and more like a little micro assistant or a very naive intern who doesn't know a lot but is very eager to learn, and with a little training they can probably help you in your daily life. You don't need to move your entire business over to AI, but if you want to dip your toe in the water, ChatGPT is a really good place to start. And remember, I have actually got a list of marketing and sales prompts plus some email content to get started that you can use, and you can get that for free in the link below to get the Google Doc. And now that you're using something like ChatGPT, you're probably wondering how you can start using it to make more sales. Well, what's probably holding you back is actually something called the education trap, where despite being well educated, your income just doesn't match your expertise, and maybe you feel like you've been left a little bit behind. So in this video, I'll talk about how to improve your income and why your education has no impact on how much you can earn, as well as how you can fix it.